Synergist. I am an Ayurvedic psychotherapist, a passionate infopreneur, edupreneur, and medical writer. I am on my pursuit of a mission to address, promote, and propagate Ayurveda and psychotherapy globally. In this discourse, I conduct discussions every week. So, this evening's discussion is a continuation of the first series of Bhagavad-Gita and psychotherapy. How the relevance of Bhagavad-Gita um, is intact in psychotherapy. That is, Bhagavad-Gita is, I have mentioned it earlier in my earlier session itself, that Bhagavad-Gita is not just a spiritual scripture. It is a psychological manual gifted by Lord Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna was the first psychotherapist this planet has ever seen. So, Bhagavad Gita, the lessons and the insights from the Bhagavad Gita can be taken into a comprehensive training program when it comes to psychology and psychotherapy. So today, today I would be giving some insights on and presenting some analogies uh, of Bhagavad Gita and psychodynamic psychotherapy. In my earlier session, I compared Bhagavad Gita with cognitive behavioral therapy and how it plays an important role. So this time it is psychodynamic psychotherapy. So I have written articles on these Bhagavad Gita, correlating Bhagavad Gita to psychotherapy. So let's begin. So, Gita says that you are your choice and you are your destiny, which denotes the influence of humanistic school of psychology. Humanism focuses on the self growth of an individual. The story shows that Lord Krishna is successful in maintaining the emotional balance of Arjuna. The most interesting and often misunderstood aspect of the Bhagavad Gita is that it is entirely representational and highly symbolic. There is no actual battlefield or fight to be won. The entire text represents the battle that goes on in our minds. It is about understanding that how can we overcome difficulty, self-doubt, and ultimately live in a life of truth and purpose. So if you ask me, how is Bhagavad Gita related to psychology? That is intelligent action, that is gnana karma, without performance anxiety and without the greed for the fruits of the work, that is nishkarma, nishkama karma. So jnana karma, nishkama karma, and never have the choice of non performance of duty, that is a karma, emerges as a key point in the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is the best philosophical confluence of karma, bhakti, and gnana yoga, as Krishna's solutions to Arjuna's problem is comprehensive, involving the behavioral karma yoga, the emotional bhakti yoga, and intellectual gnana yoga. So, Bhagavad Gita comprises of karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga. So, an interesting aspect here also is Einstein also had to say about Bhagavad Gita. So, Albert Einstein deeply regretted the fact that he should have indulged in Bhagavad Gita in the early formative years of his life. He said, "When I read the Bhagavad Gita, everything else seems so superfluous." So he also meant that Bhagavad Gita is a deeply incited psychology. So some of the interesting and important shlokas that Krishna explains to Arjuna, or in turn explains to all of us, because Bhagavad Gita is a manual written for all of us. rather. So it goes like this: उद्धरेद आत्मनात्मानं नात्मानम् अवसादयेत् आत्मैव हि आत्मनो बंधुर आत्मैव हि रिपुरात्मनः. So that means, let a man be lifted by his own self, let him not lower himself, for he himself is his friend and he himself is his enemy. So, to paraphrase this, this is the literal meaning. So, Krishna means that a man should lift himself by his own. So, let a man lift himself by his own self alone, and let him not lower himself for the self alone. He is the friend of himself. He is the friend. Self alone is the friend of oneself, and the self alone is the enemy of oneself. So here the Lord proclaims that each individual should lift himself by his own effort. Man is the architect of his own destiny, the pilot of his own fate. God also helps only those who help themselves. This is a great message from Bhagavad Gita. One has to pay the price even for a small article they buy from the market. This is a simile. Similarly, we can imagine what price a person has to pay to obtain eternal joy and peace. Imagine the amount of effort, struggle, and striving needed to attain salvation. Thus, Lord Krishna states, let every human should work diligently by carrying out the instructions of the Shastras and the Guru. Ultimately, it is the self that realizes the self. The Lord clarifies it to all seekers that they should not expect any sudden transformation from one state to another by any sort of miracle. So, there are no miracles, magic, or luck. It is pure efforts. Lord is trying to tell that. So, ascend, do not go down. Your fate is in your hands. Strive and succeed. This is the Lord's inspiring call to mankind. So, another shloka, I think this shloka most of you might have heard. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturgur ma te sangostva karmani. So, this means the right is to work only, but never to its fruits. By the way, this is the shloka from chapter 2 and verse 47. The right is to work only, but never to its fruits. Let not the fruit of action be the motive, nor let the attachment be to inaction. You have the right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. See, humans always even don't appreciate the process. We are always up to the results. So, Lord is telling us to perform our action. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So, this is the beautiful message. In continuation to that, Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddhayo Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Here he states how it should be done. Be steadfast in yoga. Yoga does not mean here only asanas. Yoga means jnana yoga, karma yoga, etc. O Arjuna, perform your duty and abandon all attachment to success or failure. Such evenness of mind is called yoga. So, yoga is the evenness of mind. Be steadfast in the performance of duty. So, the equanimity and the evenness is called yoga here. The steadiness, the equanimity that enables us to accept all circumstances with serenity is so praiseworthy that Sri Krishna calls it yoga, or union with the supreme. This equipoise comes from implementing the knowledge of the previous verse. When we understand that the effort is in our hands, not the results, we then concern ourselves with doing our duty. The results are for the pleasure of God, and so we dedicate them to Him. Now, if the results are not to our expectations, we calmly accept them as the will of God. In this way, we are able to accept fame and infamy, success and failure, pleasure and pain as God's will. When we learn to embrace both equally, we develop the equanimity that Sri Krishna talks about. This verse is a very practical solution to the unpleasant changes or unwelcomed transitions of life. So, when I talk about comparing the psychodynamic psychotherapy to Bhagavad Gita, so, first of all, we have to know what is. I have to let you know what is psychodynamic psychotherapy. So, psychodynamic psychotherapy is one of the therapies we practice in modern psychotherapy while dealing with mental health and clients of mental health illnesses. So, psychodynamic psychotherapy focuses on the psychological roots of emotional suffering. Its hallmarks are self-reflection and self-examination, and the use of relationship between therapist and patient as a window into problematic relationship pattern in the patient's life. So, psychodynamic psychotherapy, the general term for the types, it is a form of talk therapy where underlying problems, root causes are identified, explored, and addressed over the time by the therapist. So, it is an interaction, just as the interaction between Krishna and Arjuna. This psychodynamic psychotherapy is also a talk therapy between the therapist and the client. So, if I have to actually, compare it, so comparable analogies linking psychodynamic psychotherapy to Bhagavad Gita enlightenment. So, in contrast to cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamic psychotherapy facilitates a patient's rewriting of his life narrative. His picture of himself, his past, his present, and future seems uniquely positioned to address the depth of an individual's experience. This was a quote given by Richard Summers. So, coming to psychodynamic therapy exactly and comparison, psychodynamic therapy is a form of talk therapy. It is based on the idea that talking to a professional about problems people are facing can help them find relief and reach solutions. Similarly, Arjuna felt that talking to Krishna would relieve his problems. This approach to psychotherapy can be helpful for dealing with mental or emotional distress. It can help promote self reflection, insight, and emotional growth. The central theme of psychodynamic psychotherapy is the presence of conflict related to unacceptable aspects of the self. In several of these theories, the distress is about a conflict between internal dissonance and external environment. By striking a balance, one promotes adaptation. So, the main theme of psychodynamic psychotherapy is exactly as in Gita, the core theme. That is, there is a conflict. If I have to explain, there is a conflict in Arjuna's mind that whether he has to, initiate war against his own cousins. Pandavas and Kauravas were cousins, and his gurus and um, gurus and teachers who taught him. So he has to go against them. So this is a conflict between him. Is it Arjuna was really thinking that is it really necessary for him to fight the battle there? So the core theme of Gita also involves a successful resolution on conflicts faced by Arjuna. Attributes like kama, lust, krodha, adaptive anger, lobha, greed, moha, insatiable attachment, ahankara, unfounded self glorification are rajasic and tamasic in nature, which noticeable similarly to the ID functions. The thing is, in Ayurveda also we talk about three gunas, that is sattva, rajas, and tamas. And here also in Bhagavad Gita, rajas and tamas are talked about. See, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, ahankara are rajasic and tamasic in nature. So these attributes, you know lead to destruction of the person. The Gita describes hate and lust to be in an individual's lesser nature, comparable to the Freudian hierarchy of the ID. See, Sigmund Freud is the father of psychology. So, all the psychodynamic psychotherapy was actually founded by Sigmund Freud. The Gita argues that mind is superior to the power of the senses, analogous to theories describing the interaction between the ego and superego. So, the Gita, it claims intense ardency will generate confusion of the mind that leads to loss of reason and makes one forget his or her duty, which may finally culminate in self destruction. The thing is, his karma, Arjuna's karma, Krishna is trying to explain here that Arjuna's karma was to fight the battle for the right reasons, but he was getting distracted because it was his family ultimately. So, the Gita describes several layers of consciousness and subconscious mind. There are several aspects of unconscious mind described in psychodynamic literature, including the concept of collective conscious and unconscious mind by Jung. So Carl Jung is also one of the psychologists, and he has also contributed in several aspects of psychology. So interestingly, the idea of the whole world's unconscious, that is collective unconscious, blended into one, and that analogous concept was called Atman. That it was not named Atman, but Atman is described in Gita, that the unconscious or the collective unconscious, which the modern psychotherapy talks about, is in Bhagavad-Gita written as Atman or mentioned as Atman, and in Ayurveda also, Atma is Atma as a concept has a significant importance, as in Gita. So, the two components of the trigunas, Rajas and Tamas, are in many ways analogous, respectively, to the ego and superego. While sattvic qualities manifest as good thought, altruistic action, and relationships, Rajas adopts goal directed action with an expectation of reward. See, similar to Freudian psychodynamic or psychoanalytic psychotherapy, the trigunas are the sources of conflict and are involved in everlasting tussle for supremacy that results in symptoms of anxiety. In Freudian psychodynamic therapy, also, there is mentioning of sources of conflict. So, sources of conflict in Bhagavad Gita are mentioned as Rajas and Tamas. So then the coined terms may be different, but they are approximately doing the same thing. That is what Krishna has to explain to Arjuna in the similar way that a therapist explains to clients. And the Gita aims for an even higher mode of for success in life than just harnessing the sattvic qualities. Sattva is pure, intelligent, without devoid of any kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, etc. That quality is called sattva. It recommends rising above these gunas and attaining the superior state of unperturbedness by having a mind that is steady, at peace, and in a state of bliss. Ultimately, we all do one thing we all need in our life is a steady mind which is in a state of bliss and at peace. So gaining insight is the goal of analytical therapy, and Arjuna also gains insight by Krishna's explanation. In the similar way, the Gita and the Upanishads emphasize on this goal as well. It is the same when it comes to modern psychotherapy and Bhagavad Gita and psychotherapy. Gaining insight is the goal, final goal. So, the Gita and the Upanishads emphasize on this goal as well by asserting that achievement of true knowledge of self does not lead to salvation, it is the salvation. So, it is a kind of liberation when when the achievement of true knowledge of self, so self awareness or self knowledge, it just not only lead to salvation but it is a liberation. That means you enter into a state of bliss and you have a mind that is steady, at peace. Hence, from all these, we can draw an inference that there are multiple expressions connecting present day psychotherapy techniques to the times immemorial Bhagavad Gita. So, there are many expressions or multiple expressions that connect present day psychotherapy or present day psychology to the times immemorial Bhagavad Gita. What I want to highlight here is what the modern psychotherapy is telling, is coming up with now. Our Bhagavad Gita, Vedas and other scriptures have these 10,000, 5,000, 10,000 years ago. So the only thing I can say is, don't keep your Bhagavad Gita books in the puja room and do puja of it. Just take them out and start reading the Bhagavad Gita books. So once you start reading Bhagavad Gita, there is a it is a problem and solution oriented approach. Bhagavad Gita has a solution oriented approach. For every problem you will find a solution. So my only request is, take that Bhagavad Gita books out of your closet, puja room closet, and start reading them. And let's collectively gain insights from our scriptures, and let's not only think them as philosophical scriptures, they are psychologically relevant too. So thank you, and that's it for today. Namaste. I'll be back with another session soon. Thank you uh, for staying, if you have stayed till now, and thank you.